Oh, it's still faulty. Oh well. Alright, so what I want to talk about is, this is probably going to be the last video of the day, and probably going to be a shorter one at that. So anyways, what I wanted to talk about is staying positive in every situation. Um, it has a lot to do with your perception of reality. It has a lot to do with holding on to that ideal, and then I think yeah, it is kind of like highlighting different parts of my aura. It's kind of cool. But anyways, enough about the little digital myths. Um, so how to stay positive inside negative reality. What you want to do first is remind yourself that you are the only one inside your body, and it is your choice whether you want to be happy or you want to be sad. And there's no external scenarios or people or situations or whatever you want to do it. There's nothing external that can break your mood unless you allow that power to happen. Oh, for an instance, you guys might fight this, but let's say there's like a camp or like a dude that's got like captured, whatever, as prisoner of war, and he's being tortured and stuff. Actually, this is actually probably the best metaphor. But let's say they were doing that stuff to torture you or whatever, and then you felt. I mean, come on, who wouldn't feel like they just been dropped into a negative experience, you know? But it's just one flip of your switch there inside the mental reality. Oh, whoa, I'm sorry. Inside your mentality. Sorry, your mental reality mentality. I mean, it kind of coexists. But I just want to put mentality out there, and not keep the negative vibes into there. So um, let's say let's say you were Rambo getting like tortured by that one dude, and he had like the little zappers and stuff. I'm not even sure what movie that was on. It was one of the Rambos, and then he flips it like any torture scene. You'll see they're really deep inside their mind. They're not trying to feel anything out there because anything out there is going to be a little bit negative, right? Because they're trying to make that negative, obviously. So what they do is dive inside themselves, inside their true selves, and they reformulate things. This is no longer a torture experience. Maybe for them it is a test of strength. Um, Anybody who puts themselves into like who can manifest or a torture little scenario for them, there has to be some kind of like fighting spirit inside their mind, that they have to prove to God in some kind of way, right? Or else they would never have been manifested for them. If you're not a warrior spirit, they're not going to throw you in like a torture camp or in a battlefield, I mean, where you don't belong, unless it's to tell you that you don't belong there. But so I know. Bear with me, guys. I'm operating pretty fast now. We're jumping over it. Um, so as you flip that perspective into like a test, like a karmic test, or no. What they use, I think, it was shamanic test, is what somebody used, and it kind of rings true. I feel like a lot of these negative situations that we manifest into our life, because it is you. That is you. That is nobody else in your life but you drawing in those negative manifestations. Sorry, kids. So it is your job as the creator of these manifestations to transmute them and turn them into positive. If you don't, you're just letting them linger around negative, and they're just going to come back as negative again. So, and when you jump up to something into a state of, I don't know, like to a reality, I think, and you feel like a little bit of conflict, I think there always will be like a shamanic test, like basically a test to show how much you really want it, if it's in your heart or if it's in your mind. Because sometimes you get confused and we might lead ourselves into the wrong, life, whatever, and it might feel good to the ego, so you might trick yourself into thinking that it's the right path. And so these are what these little shamanic tests or negative scenarios come from. Is the test of damn, Siri just dropped it. You're probably sitting right at the door. Anyways, so anytime you pick a path, there will be somebody there to contest it. That contrast, that conflict is only to reassure your belief system, because anytime you come in contact or any clash like that, is two belief systems that you're thinking of and you're trying to express, and they're trying to express differently. You have one side of the spectrum trying to express this part, and one side of this belief spectrum trying to do that, and you must manifest them, because there can only be one, right? Or there's the balance of the two. So sometimes you need to bring in whatever. So that negative experience will tell you exactly, if you look at it from like a more positive point of view or a more higher plateau, you will see that it's not as negative as you think it was. It was only to draw your attention to something that is of immediate importance into constructing your most positive reality. And the only reason why it's negative there is because that's the shit that you need to change. Your true self knows, yeah, I don't give a fuck if I said shit. Sorry. Um, but it's just a word, guys. Don't flip the negative on me, please. So, let's say they pulled me into that, you bastards. So, what was I gonna say? It's just about flipping it. Just flipping into your favor, to your control, and keeping it positive. Keeping it positive. Turning all those negatives into positives, and showing out love and compassion and stuff like this. Because these are all teachings for you. Everything that you transmute will make you stronger and bigger and that much more powerful. Um, why is that important to understand all these different negatives and transmute them? Because if you're not at that level yet, I should say, if somebody else is at that level, but they're higher up, and they have a stronger mentality than you, they can change your reality from the outside perspective. So, what you need to do is transmute that, understand it, and then create a more positive reflection about it, and then bring truth and meaning from that experience. So then there's understanding there, okay? And then you'll understand why you put them there. There'll be a reason, and there'll be positive. Understand? So it's back inside your control and inside nobody else's control. You made this happen by yourself to learn from it, or for whatever reason. For me, I'm the Sagittarius Capricorn, so a lot of times when I feel a negative experience, it's something I need to work on. Um, like this, the blurriness. I think I'm seeing life a little bit more blurred than what it actually is. I think I'm seeing a little bit more negativity instead of seeing a little bit more clearly. Maybe, I don't know. So we're working on that. It's kind of weird how it just started doing that. I don't understand. Like, I don't know if it's bandwidth or what. As you start understanding at all the different levels, you start understanding. I mean, let's say you start understanding at like a more spiritual level. What is it supposed to teach me? Then you start understanding in a more physical level, and then you'll be able to not only transmute that spiritually but physically as well. And that's what I do. I mean, I'm Sag Cap, so yeah. It comes in and I understand it, and then once I understand it, then I change it, mentally, because that's first. You go spiritually, mentally, and then physically, and then I start to change that physically. Physically, this is hard, but it's not hard. Everything you do inside the physical is gonna be a little bit lower. It's gonna be it's lower vibe, so it's gonna be slower. Okay, it's lower frequency. Um, that's why it's so solid. You know, it's not high enough frequency to where it is just completely one. Um, so yeah, I guess in a way, our physical world is kind of in conflict right now, and we kind of need to bring it back to harmony and bring it back to balance. Yeah, yeah. If you guys ever need help turning a negative experience to a positive one, or you just need somebody to listen to you, because sometimes just talking about it is that much more efficient. You'd be surprised about how much talking about a problem can actually help you realize the solution to that problem without even having anybody say anything. You know, just having somebody to sit there to listen to you. Maybe sometimes we need to talk out loud and listen to ourselves even. Um, People underestimate how much power words have inside this world. They are not just thoughts. They are thoughts expressed into the physical world. So just remember that words do mean a lot. Um, for that, I think I'm pretty much done. Feels a little bit better in here. Not as hot. I'm a fire sign, but it was like a nasty kind of hot. It was like a conflict of mentality kind of hot. Not like the natural kind of hot. You know, not like the I'm judging you because whatever. We're not gonna bring that up. But yeah, I hope that helps. Didn't clear anything up for me on my end, but namaste. Um, Understanding, love, and compassion, guys. Remember that, please.